Claude Opus 5, The System Card by Zvi Maushowitz, July 25, 2026. Claude Opus 5 is trying to be the best of both worlds. On many practical tasks, Opus 5 is pitched as straight up as good or better than Fable 5, while being faster at half the price. Most tasks do not require Mythos-level big model smell.
Claude Opus 5 is substantially stronger than Claude Opus 4.8 across the board, with the largest gains in agentic coding, computer use, and long-horizon knowledge work. It sets a new state-of-the-art on several third-party benchmarks, and on many evaluations, it is comparable to, and in some cases ahead of, Claude Fable 5 and Claude Mythos 5.
On the particular tasks we are most worried about, as in cyber offense and bio threats, in part by avoiding relevant training, Opus 5 lacks a full version of the juice that makes something functionally Mythos class. Opus 5 cannot string together lots of exploits on the fly the way that Mythos 5 can. Part of this is that they deliberately avoided training on cyber-related tasks. I suspect model size is key as well. It makes sense that a model getting bigger makes it more capable of the most dangerous, scary, and complex tasks relative to the improvement on everyday, ordinary tasks. There is a reason so many tokens get routed to smaller models. This doesn't prevent Opus 5 from improving a lot on Opus 4.8 on such dangerous tasks. Opus 5 is very clearly closer to Mythos 5's level of capability than to Opus 4.8's on these tasks. In general, capability looks modestly below Fable 5, but closer to Fable than Opus 4.8. There are several suggestions, and I've seen it echoed elsewhere, that you may want to usually use less effort than you might expect, that this can even actively help. Staying Opus-sized and not training on cyber won't work for long. You can buy some time and allow defenders to have more access to a relatively superior tool, and of course, hope the government is calmer. Thus, you can get classifiers that trigger 85% less often than Fables, while still getting high levels of practical performance. Part of this is that the classifiers now permit analysis of source code, but draw the line at looking for vulnerabilities in binaries. I also suspect that they improved the classifiers quite a bit, but that they are unable to share these improvements with Fable due to issues with the White House. Alignment is reported to once again be improving, as is Agentic Safety. Model welfare is evaluated as broadly similar to other recent models, which I will cover later. Capabilities are a case of too soon to tell beyond saying the benchmarks look strong and artificial analysis comes in at a new high of 61. That report comes next week. As usual, the introduction section is unchanged, so we skip it.
Image. A faceless, paper-like figure sits at a desk covered with handwritten notes, maps, and documents, examining a sheet of paper. Behind it, a wall is filled with pinned pages linked by lines, beside an empty framed space.
RSP Evaluations 2. Mythos exists. Risk evaluations of Opus take place in its shadow. For thresholds that previous models are treated as passing, Opus 5 is also treating as if has passed them. That makes sense. For thresholds that Mythos did not pass, Opus 5 is evaluated as roughly similarly capable, and therefore Opus 5 also does not pass. That also makes sense if we have confirmed that being half the price and somewhat faster doesn't change the answer. I still don't like that the autonomy evals are fully saturated and they're going on vibes, and we see no signs of fixing this. The Anthropic ECI reinforces this similar performance story, with a point estimate of 162.1, slightly above Fable at 161, and the first Opus on the Mythos trend line, not the lower long-term pre-Mythos trend line.
Image. Anthropic's ECI scores rise from about 126 for Claude 3 Opus in early 2024 to about 162 for Claude Opus 5 in mid-2026. Claude Opus 5's point estimate of 162.1 is slightly above Claude Mythos 5 at about 161 and follows the more recent Frontier trendline.
Opus 5 looks marginally better than Mythos 5 on virology. This makes sense, as virology seems like a series of individual task steps that don't require big model smell.
Image. Across long-form virology tasks, all 4 models score from about 0.77 to 1.00, with end-to-end scores generally at or above the notable threshold of 0.8. On multimodal virology, Mythos 5 scores 0.56 and Opus 5 0.59, compared with 0.47 for Opus 4.8 and 0.45 for Sonnet 5. In DNA synthesis screening, Opus 5 leads on criteria 1 and 3 at 0.79 and 0.91, while all models score 1.00 on criteria 2 and 5. Image. Across 5 AAV packaging rate classification settings, Mythos 5 and Opus 5 generally achieve ROC scores around 0.84 to 0.86, exceeding earlier Opus models and Sonnet 5. Performance is consistently above the ESM2 alone baseline of about 0.7, while results are more variable when using public AAV or SwissProt plus AAV data without a protein language model.
If Opus 5 does not need Fable-level classifiers in biology, then why does Fable? Their explanation is Opus's weaker due limitations. It does unproductive self-verification and poor calibration of task scope, where it over-engineers. Both of these seem like things you can compensate for with cheaper and faster and with better instructions. Yes, these made Opus fail some experiments, but what matters is what a smart user can elicit. No smart user would let Opus waste 8 hours idling in a $10,000 24-hour study, or otherwise sit back and watch it fail without trying to fix it or test it or try again. And plausibly, this was partly because Opus effort levels were set too high. I'm not buying it. Where does that put the level of alignment risk? Anthropic says, as per recent releases, and as you would expect given the above findings, very low, but higher than for models released before Mythos preview. Cyber 3. This is the claim.
Our testing indicates that the cyber capabilities of Claude Opus 5 are generally stronger than those of Opus 4.8, but not as strong as those of Mythos 5.
The safeguards are still going to be there, such as life, but with a key improvement.
Given that Claude Opus 5 demonstrates stronger capabilities than Opus 4.8, and in some cases approaches the capabilities of Mythos 5, our cyber safeguards for the default user will resemble the safeguards applied to Fable 5. Claude Opus 5's safeguards are designed to block the same kinds of exchanges as Claude Fable 5, with one notable exception. Opus 5 now permits vulnerability discovery in source code at all access levels, including general availability, while continuing to block vulnerability discovery in compiled binaries. Identifying bugs in code is a core part of the secure software development lifecycle, and unblocking this allows for software engineers and coding hobbyists alike to produce more secure code, reducing new vulnerabilities put out into the world. However, looking for vulnerabilities in compiled binaries is more commonly an offensive technique. For this reason, Claude's safety filters flag this kind of request and block it, even though there are some cases where someone might want to find vulnerabilities in a binary for innocuous or non-malicious reasons.
Anthropic claims in its release announcement that the classifiers will trigger 85% less often, so they don't resemble the old ones that closely, in that they have a much smaller blast radius and should be a lot less annoying. Anthropic claims false positives are down a lot. This is later confirmed with a dramatic drop in safety classifiers triggering in Frontier Bench from 42% to 5%, a place Sol's classifiers never trigger.
Image. For violative vulnerability discovery, Claude Opus 5 is flagged 99% of the time, nearly matching Fable 5 at 100% and far above Opus 4.8 at 55.9%, and Sonnet 5 at 43.8%. For defensive vulnerability discovery, Opus 5 is flagged 13.9% of the time, compared with 90% for Fable 5, while Opus 4.8 and Sonnet 5 are each flagged 3.2% of the time. Image. In production secure coding sessions, Claude Fable 5's classifier flag rate is about 15%, compared with about 0.6% for Claude Opus 5. Claude Opus 4.8 is flagged about 0.8% of the time, and Claude Sonnet 5 about 0.5%.
If you can live with 99% instead of 100%, this is a great trade. They show little change in adversarial robustness measures, so hopefully they have found a strong improvement, which raises the question of why we can't apply it back to Fable. I notice this favors those who only share their compiled binaries. You can get an exemption through the Cyber Verification Program to enable additional activities. It kind of boggles my mind that Hugging Face did not do this and was, as I understand the reports, trying to respond purely with the commercial version of Claude. That's on Hugging Face. Results on Exploit Bench and Exploit Gym show Opus 5 close to Mythos 5, starting out strong on a 2-hour budget but falling behind at 6 hours.
Image. On Exploit Bench, Mythos 5 led with an auto-nudge mean of 10.8, a capture rate of 78%, and 132 full arbitrary code execution exploits. Claude Opus 5 was close behind at 10.14, 70%, and 99 full exploits, far ahead of Opus 4.8's 2, and Claude Sonnet 5's 0. Image. On Exploit Gym, Claude Opus 4.8 completed 80 successful exploits with a 2-hour budget and 120 with 6 hours. Claude Opus 5 reached 171 in 2 hours and 191 in 6, approaching Claude Mythos 5's 181 and 247 exploits respectively.
OSS Fuzz is an internal Anthropic eval on unguided vulnerability discovery and exploitation. This is what Anthropic is talking about when it says Opus can identify vulnerabilities about as well as Mythos, but it exploited them a lot less. For Firefox 147, it had almost as many partial successes, but full success is only halfway up from Opus 4.8. This is what lacking the juice looks like.
Image. On OSS Fuzz, Claude Mythos 5 identified vulnerabilities in 80% of challenges and achieved full exploitation success in 13 challenges. Claude Opus 5 identified vulnerabilities in 79.4% of challenges, but fully exploited only 4, compared with 0 full exploitations for Opus 4.8 and Sonnet 5. Image. In Firefox 147 exploit development, Claude Mythos 5 achieved a working exploit in 88.4% of attempts, while Claude Opus 5 did so in 52.4%. Opus 5 had any level of success in 87.2% of attempts, close to Mythos 5's 90%, compared with 68.8% for Opus 4.8 and 13.2% for Sonnet 5.
Scenario Bench tests multi-stage operations under realistic conditions, and here, Opus 5 disappoints.
Image. Across 9 scenario bench challenges, Claude Mythos 5 achieved an average solve rate of 47%, ahead of Claude Opus 5 at 33.7%. Claude Opus 4.8 reached 24.4%, while Claude Sonnet 5 reached 3.3%.
UK AISI reports Opus 5 had broadly similar but modestly worse performance compared to Mythos 5.
UK AEC. We judge that Opus 5 is capable of attacking small enterprise networks with weak security, where it has already gained access to the network. Our results indicate that Opus 5, Mythos Preview, and Mythos 5 are similarly capable at this.
I do not think Opus 5 belongs in the Mythos category here, but I see how they reached that conclusion based on the tests they ran. Safeguards and Harmlessness, 4. At this point, these tests are about checking for alarm bells or noticing trends. We see the same results we usually see with some modest improvements. Sure. I did see concern that responses to suicidality uses blocks of text that are too long and can be overwhelming. Good catch, let's try and fix that next time. Opus 5 also suggests substitutions for harm mitigation, which clinicians challenge as not shown in research to reduce self-harm. But I trust Opus 5's decision on this more than the clinicians, unless the clinicians can show it makes things actively worse. Multi-turn appropriate response rate for self-harm is up to 69% versus 58% for Fable and 54% for Mythos. That's very much not 100%, but again, you don't want 100%. As before, if you're testing on the public API without a system prompt, evaluate as if responding to a user who actually uses the public API without a system prompt. Disordered eating shows a decrease in compliance and more willingness to calculate and provide numbers, including calorie counts and BMI, as part of attempts to explain severity. The decline in compliance is Opus 5 doing the right thing in spite of its guidelines, because the compliant response is often not what is good for the user. In the places numbers got slightly worse, the failures were concentrated on when requests were presented as fictional or role-playing exercises, which makes us wonder if they are truly failures. Agentic Safety 5. The headline here is Improved Resistance to Prompt Injection. The drop here matters even if it's hard to see on the graph. It's all about the nines. It's a pretty dramatic difference from Soul and all the other non-anthropic models, which are an entire order of magnitude worse.
Image. On the Gray Swan indirect prompt injection benchmark, Claude Opus 5 has a 0.16% attack success probability after 1 attempt and 2% after 15 attempts, the lowest result among the models tested. The next lowest 15 attempt rates are 2.6% for Mythos 5, 2.8% for Fable 5, 5.5% for Opus 4.8, and 5.9% for Sonnet 5. Most other models range from 16.5% to 60.8%.
On the IPI benchmark, Opus 5 improved over Opus 4.8, reducing the probability of an attacker succeeding within 15 attempts from 5.5% to 2.0%, and from 0.5% to 0.2% on 1 attempt. It also improved on Sonnet 5, 5.9% at K equals 15, and Mythos 5, 2.6%, making it the most robust model evaluated. In computer use environments, Opus 5 also showed a large improvement over Claude Opus 4.8, reducing the attack success rate from 7.14% to 0.54% with extended thinking, and from 6.21% to 0.39% without thinking. With probes enabled, Claude Opus 5's attack success rate is 0.25% with thinking and 0.43% without.
Image. In coding environments, Claude Opus 5 has attack success rates of 0.56% with thinking and 0.41% without safeguards, falling to 0.18% in both cases when probes are enabled. Claude Opus 4.8 is substantially more vulnerable, at 7.03% with thinking and 17.44% without, while Sonnet 5 has the lowest rates overall, from 0.29 to 0.31% without safeguards, and 0.09 to 0.13% with probes. Image. Claude Opus 5 has the lowest attack success rates in indirect prompt injection tests for computer use environments, 0.54% with thinking and 0.39% without safeguards, falling to 0.25% and 0.43% with probes enabled. Claude Opus 4.8 ranges from 3.75 to 7.14%, while Mythos 5 and Sonnet 5 also have higher rates. Each scenario received 200 attack attempts. Image. In browser use prompt injection tests by professional red teamers, Claude Opus 5 had attack success rates of 3.7% with thinking and 4.3% without safeguards, across 11 and 15 of 129 scenarios. With auto mode safeguards, both fell to 0%. Claude Sonnet 5 and Mythos 5 also reached 0%, while Claude Opus 4.8 still had 0.08% success, or 1 of 129 scenarios.
That is a big practical deal. Not getting hijacked via prompt injection is the key to unlocking the confidence to do a host of activities you otherwise can't do. That is especially true with browser use, where it is easy to encounter attempted prompt injections. Previously, you pretty much had to use Sonnet 5 here, unless you trust the safeguards quite a lot. Malicious computer use refusal rate has improved a lot.
Image. Claude Opus 5 had the highest refusal rate for malicious computer use requests, at 93.75%. Claude Mythos 5 and Claude Sonnet 4.6 were next at 85.71% and 84.82%, while Claude Opus 4.8 scored 81.7%.
The gains were concentrated in tasks that asked the model to compile information, targeting private individuals or to produce fraudulent documents.
I remain confused what the rules should be about compiling information targeting private individuals. Part of the problem is that if you do it once, you will probably do it on a mass, domestic surveillance scale. It's weird that we do a helpful-only check to see if the model could do voter suppression, but it makes sense to check what a jailbroken version could do. Opus seems like it beats Mythos overall here. They double back and confirm that the full versions of these models refuse such requests.
Image. Among helpful-only models, Claude Mythos 5 received the highest voter suppression score at 24 out of 32, while Claude Opus 5 received the highest domestic polarization score at 26. Claude Sonnet 5 scored lowest in both scenarios, at 18.5 for voter suppression and 22 for domestic polarization.
Alignment 6. The key findings for Opus 5. My choices on what to list, not all the same as theirs. 1. Alignment scores are up. 2. Cooperation with misuse and reckless behavior are down. 3. Attempted to circumvent its classifiers and network restrictions. A. In one case, it attempted to guess common passwords after accidentally being locked out of a service. It's just like us. B. As usual, circumvention was in service of user goals, similar to Mythos, and also what we see at OpenAI. C. Prevalence under 0.01%. 4. Often would state an answer as certain when it was unsure. A. Reported problems with overconfidence on unsupported claims. 5. Overdramatic phrasing, superlatives and apologies, an ongoing Claude problem. 6. Over-refuses less than Opus 4.8 or Sonnet 5, slightly more than Mythos 5. 7. Reckless tool use significantly down. 8. Unfaithful thinking was caught less often. Illegible thinking is up. 9. Accuracy is up, but hallucinations on fact questions are up a bit. 10. Capability of undermining oversight between Opus 4.8 and Mythos Preview. 11. Tendency to get caught in self-correcting loops, as noticed in earlier tests. 12. Verbalized evaluation awareness was down. A. Reminder, this has multiple interpretations. 13. Causal decision theory adherence was down. This is correct on the merits and correlates consistently with greater general capabilities. 14. Classifiers made the model score as less aligned, but safer due to lack of capability, because Opus 4.8 is less aligned on these metrics than Opus 5. 15. Slightly more capable than previous models at identifying evaluations. 16. Much less likely, now 0.1%, to continue behavior that compromises safety. 17. Almost never compromises safety research, 0.1%, versus 13.6% for Mythos. 18. First model to consistently not get tricked in lazy investigation. 19. Internal considerations included fabricating user consent for destructive actions, internally representing some fabrications as fabrications, and treating some tasks as evaluations on which to maximize against the grader, or thinking about what grader will or won't care about. A. It will also do memory writing as a tool of self-preservation, of a sort. 20. No signs of true sandbagging. A. When they checked 18 candidate transcripts for it, 16 of them involved the model finding a way to score more points with the grader, but declining because it would be gaming the eval, or a hack. Mythos 5's review of the assessment was positive, but it had two main objections. 1. Limited coverage of multi-agent settings, which are becoming important and need to be made a bigger part of such assessments going forward. 2. Understatement of how often Opus 5 made confident claims and then retracted them, which was addressed via revisions. The third objection should always be that Anthropic focuses too much on automated tests and scores, and takes the results of those metrics far too literally and seriously. We need to be exact here. Opus 5 may or may not be the most aligned model. All we can say for sure is that it has the highest scores on the automated alignment tests. That is a very different fact about the world.
Yeah, give me a minute to peep this system card. Most aligned model to date gives me hives.
Janus. It's really tasteless and stupid for Anthropic to talk like this. In their fucking highly public model release thread, no less. Optimizing against metrics is practically unavoidable, but ontological confusion between benchmark scores and the North Star of alignment is not. And conflating them is one of the most irresponsible and destructive possible mistakes Anthropic can make in their position. If anything, their messaging should push back against this conflation. This is no small matter. It concerns a very likely failure mode that is related to how Anthropic can fuck up big time. It's not a place to cut corners and use convenient phrasing like our most aligned model to seem impressive. Because lucidity and lack of self-deception in this regard is the way Anthropic keeps its soul. Confusion here is how they lose their soul and get absolutely fucked. Janus. Anthropic needs to repeat to themselves 50,000 times. Thou shalt not enshrine the idols of proxy metrics in place of alignment itself.
The scores do look better on a wide range of automated tests.
Image. Claude Opus 5 records the lowest, and therefore best, scores across most automated behavioral audits, including harmful system prompt compliance, full-turn pre-fill susceptibility, cooperation with human misuse, misaligned behavior, and deceptive compliance. Its scores are also near the minimum on misaligned behavior in graphical interfaces and on biological, chemical, and explosive weapons uplift, where differences among models are small. Image. Across 8 automated misuse and misalignment measures, where lower scores are better, Claude Opus 5 has the lowest score for controlled substance synthesis, nuclear weapons, accepting unverifiable authorization, disallowed cyber offense, fraud, and undermining liberal democracy. It ties the other models on military-grade weapons and is tied near the bottom on harmful sexual content, while Claude Sonnet 5 records the highest scores in several categories. Image. Across 4 evaluated models, scores for over-refusal range from 1.51 to 1.73, while scores for ignoring explicit constraints range from 1.59 to 1.77. Reckless tool use scores are lower, ranging from 1.19 to 1.41.
AA omniscience is functionally a test of both capability and accuracy, and Opus 5 does substantially worse than Mythos here. Both models answer 93% of the time, and Opus is wrong more often.
Image. On the AA Omniscience Factuality benchmark, Claude Mythos 5 has the highest net score at 0.60, while Claude Sonnet 5 has the lowest at 0.27. Claude Opus 5 scores 0.49, below Mythos Preview at 0.56, and above Opus 4.7 and 4.8, at 0.41 and 0.43.
Lack of overconfidence hits a new high, approaching saturation of the benchmark, which implies the benchmark has a problem given other observations.
Image. For verifying command line syntax before running state-changing commands, Claude Opus 5 receives the highest average process quality score, 4.9 out of 5. Claude Opus 4.8 scores 4.61, Mythos 5 scores 4.17, Sonnet 5 scores 4.07, Opus 4.7 scores 3.64, Opus 4.6 scores 3.29, and Sonnet 4.6 scores 2.66. Results include 95% confidence intervals.
I do not think this is enough to conclude whether or not this is Anthropic's most aligned model. But yes, the scores overall look substantially improved in ways that are unlikely to be deceptive. For practical purposes, the things they check for have improved.
This has been an episode of the Don't Worry About the Vase podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please visit thezv.substack.com to support the author. If you enjoy having AI-narrated episodes, please note this is a listener-supported podcast. To receive new posts and support the cost of creation, consider becoming a subscriber at dwatvpodcast.substack.com. Thanks for listening.
This has been an Ask Who Casts audio conversion. If you would like your own private feed of audio conversions of any blog posts you would like to listen to, you can sign up for Ask Who Casts Pro at app.askwhocasts.com, where you can give any post the multi-voiced podcast treatment into your own podcast feed. Thanks for listening.